There's a lot to love about Attack on Titan's anime adaptation, from the breathtaking animation to its wonderful soundtrack. In fact, in a large number of ways, I believe that it outshines the manga, both in terms of its visuals and its emotional impact. There are actually a lot of differences between the first section of the manga and anime. Some of these differences are quite subtle, while others become clear very quickly. In my opinion, many of the changes made make it easier to relate to the characters in the anime, and while that is a good thing, the changes have another effect that's particularly interesting. They make it seem like Eren should have stayed dead. I'm sure some people who read the manga feel the same way, regardless of how the anime changes things. But there are many specific decisions that make this idea come to the forefront of the story. Today I want to go through those with you, starting with the most obvious change: the way the anime reorders the story's events. In the anime, a largely chronological story is told, with very few flashbacks or moments where the past is focused on. The manga, meanwhile, jumps around a lot more in its earlier sections. As such, the anime adapts approximately chapters 1 through 4 and then 14 through 18 in its first 5 episodes, which of course results in a huge change in terms of structure. Since chapters 14 through 18 show the bulk of the characters' training, this means that in the manga, we're going into the first battle knowing a relatively small amount about them when compared to the anime. Because of this, when watching episodes 1 through 5, I prefer their rendition of events to the manga's. And that's because this ordering makes it a lot easier to relate to the characters, as I mentioned earlier, since we've spent more time with them and we actually know who they are. This way, the deaths can have more of an impact on us, and even with the characters that don't die, there's that fear that they might. Thus, in the first battle, there's a lot more tension in the anime than in the manga. This also means that we know a lot more about Eren before the first battle, which means that we hear him talking about how much he wants to kill the Titans more often, that we see how he struggles and succeeds as he trains, and that we see more of his relationship with Mikasa, Armin, and all the other people who are training with them. Because of this, by the time we go into this battle, Eren's character has been more well established. So when he gets chomped on by this Titan, it really feels like he may have died. In the manga, it just doesn't. We haven't seen enough of his interactions with any other character to move on to a different protagonist yet, and it just doesn't feel like this character has been fully explored. In the anime, with how he's interacted with Mikasa and Armin, and Jean in particular if we're going to consider the other characters as well, it very well seems like we may move on to their perspectives. And because of how the relationships are slightly altered in the anime, this feels even more natural. So let's talk about those changes in characterization and relationships, which form the backbone of my argument here, starting with Armin. With Armin, there's one big difference in character that is created in these earlier moments of the anime. In the manga, he understands Eren's goals and shares his dream, and as far as we see, he does this without any significant change in heart throughout the events of the story. In the anime, meanwhile, Armin has moments where he really questions Eren, such as this added scene in episode 2. Here, Armin questions Eren when he says that he's going to go back and kill the Titans, and tells Eren that they just can't kill the Titans anyway, and that there's nothing they can do but live within the walls. There's never an equivalent moment to this in the manga, and by extension, there's also never a moment where Eren yells at Armin like this, telling him to just spend the rest of his life as cattle and calling him a weakling. So this tension between them is unique to the anime and creates an arc for Armin, where he's influenced by Eren's ideals and decides that he wants to fight his fight along with him. Other, seemingly more minor alterations are made to Armin's character, such as in this scene, Armin doesn't say, "Finally, we can be useful to humanity," like he does in the manga. Because of that, instead of him already being this committed when they go into battle, he becomes more committed, and Eren's death is, in some ways, a catalyst for that change. So Eren becomes Armin's mentor of sorts, and as happens with many mentor figures in fiction, he dies and Armin rises to the occasion, despite being so crushed by his friend's death. When Eren and Armin remain on the same page up until Eren's death, this feels like less of a rebirth for Armin, and also less like a moment when it's revealed that Armin may be the protagonist who takes up Eren's ideals in some manner and follows through with them. Basically, all of these alterations to the relationship create an interesting arc where Armin can become more like Eren, can learn to be stronger because of Eren, and Eren's death can serve as both the proof that he needs to change and, at least in part, the very reason for that change, in a way that has been built up to over the course of multiple episodes. This makes it so that Eren's death isn't just shocking. It carries thematic weight, and the permanency of his death is part of that weight. So when he comes back, it isn't just a plot twist like it is in the manga. It's a total change in thematic direction from what the anime has established, for better or worse. The changes to Eren's and Mikasa's relationship are far less extreme, but similarly make Eren's death feel like a natural arc for the story to follow. Specifically, this is because there's added emphasis in the anime on Mikasa taking care of Eren, on how she won't let him die. Once again, this is another change that is particularly obvious in this scene, where Eren is losing it at Armin and Mikasa steps in and infamously shoves some bread into his mouth. Of course, this idea is very present in the manga, But both the reordering of scenes and other slight alterations to Eren's and Mikasa's relationship lead to this being drilled into the viewer's head even more frequently. A greater divide is also created between Eren and Mikasa, so there is more room for Eren to affect her actions and to change her worldview, especially if he were to die. This scene is one example of this, as Mikasa's kinder words are cut out of the show and she becomes more harsh and more blunt with Eren. If he were to die, this could be a moment that she looks back on and regrets because of that harshness, and if Armin were to become Eren's replacement, which is what the show trends towards after Eren's death, then this could be part of the lesson she learns. Yeah, she should try to protect her friends, but telling them not to do something just because it puts them in danger isn't necessarily the best option, and it won't stop her from losing people that she cares about, especially if they're stubborn and set in their ideals. Instead, she should probably help them become stronger, considering just how strong she is. To me, that's the arc that the anime sets out between these characters, due to these changes and the added emphasis on the relationship in these earlier scenes. So once again, when Eren comes back, what I see as the natural path of the story is entirely ignored, for better or worse. Finally, there's how Eren's and Jean's relationship changes. After all, in the manga, we know very little about them going into the first battle, but in the anime, we've seen a lot more of them together. But what we've seen is a bit different. One clear example of this comes from this scene where, in the anime, Jean is thinking about how he scored below Eren and is upset about this fact. In the manga, meanwhile, he actively speaks out against Eren here. However, Jean has already done this earlier in the anime, so he doesn't need to do it here. Instead, he listens to Eren's words, and we get some sense that he may be changing his mind about all this stuff. Then there's this added scene where Eren specifically tells Jean that they can fight the Titans, that this is what they've been training for. This way, Eren serves as motivation for a huge change within Jean, as a force that helps him to keep pushing through. All of this is to say that, even if Eren may be the protagonist of the anime in its earlier episodes and as the show goes forward, through this change in relationship with the other people around him, he embodies an extreme that, although not ideal, is something that the other characters need: the will to fight the Titans. While this is certainly present in the manga, almost every change to the anime brings this idea to the forefront of the story, and the added emphasis on this makes Eren's death feel like the natural path for the story to follow. Thank you for watching this video. It means a lot that you've done so, and I hope that you got something out of it. I also want to specifically thank my patrons over on patreon.com. They're just fantastic, and they give me a lot of motivation to keep on making videos and to try my best and try to improve. I hope that if you aren't already, you'll consider subscribing to the channel if you enjoyed the video, and I look forward to hearing from you in the comments below. But whether you choose to do that or not, I hope that you have a great day. Bye-bye.